Time now for the Educated Retirement Show with your host, Jay Kaplan. Jay discusses reverse mortgages and can answer your questions at 951-922-3532. Call lines are open at 951-922-3532. And now, here's Jay.
And now here's Jay with a bobbing head. Like I always do when that music comes on. Even though it's not my favorite music, I just cannot resist bobbing my head around. Oh, there it is. I'm looking at the monitor here. And my head can still move. Anyway, our guest got busy, couldn't make it this time that I know of, but he'll try to call in. If he doesn't, we will reschedule. That's all. And in the meantime, I will continue with nostalgia and the other good things that I normally do. And hopefully we find that enjoyable. So I was talking about Wings of Desire. And let me show that again real quick. Now, Wings of Desire, I remember, was such a strange opening. And the opening lasts for, 20, 30 minutes. And it just kind of goes through different households. And then onto a subway, onto a train, off the train. And what you're doing is you're listening to thoughts of so many different people. And then it kind of zeroes in on this radio tower that is broadcasting my show. And, it's kind of symbolic of listening to a lot of people. It's, I think, great. It was redone as City of Angels or something like that, which I didn't even want to watch because I'm really not into only because of the language. And also, When Winter's Ditch, an amazing novel, for me anyway, it was very novel way of editing that film together. Fairly long film, 1987. Bruno Ganz was a big-time German actor. Peter Falk, who plays an angel, by the way. And Nick Cave was even in it, including a bunch of his music. I've got the soundtrack, which just came out not too long ago. It's got some great stuff on it. We showed it on the show a little bit ago. I've got so many records I can't find them, but that's okay. I got my amplifier since the show last week. Or was it since? No, I got it that Thursday, I think it was the day before the show. And I'm back into listening to records. Life is wonderful. In any case, Peter Falk is an angel, yeah. But it shows a couple of different angels, and one of them actually wants to become human, falls in love. But the way the story is told is just amazing. Till the End of the World was 1991, starred William Hurt, Sam Neill, Max von Sydow, and the original film was 20 hours long. Now, I had when I met my friend and his son in Los Angeles on this last Sunday, we asked ourselves, it had nothing to do with the show, about the length of films, but the longest film ever made, I forgot the name of it, never knew it that much, was like 23 days, 35 days, 17 hours, and X amount of minutes. Not sure I could do that in one sitting, but in any case, this film is 20 hours long. U.S. version was 158 minutes, which is the one I've seen. And there's a new director's cut version, which is 287 minutes, which I would love to see. The music is great. And I'm not always big on a music soundtrack. And there's some original music, of course. But Wings of Desire and this had the same kind of, original music plus songs that were popular for the time. This, I remember, U2, Talking Heads, David Bryan, I think by himself even, and of course Nick Cave, who was also in the film a little bit, and what's his name in the City Solution, which I really like their music too. I guess I just like a lot of music from the 90s. But in any case, this is a highly recommended film, and you don't need 6 hours. The American version is very entertaining. Buena Vista Social Club came out in 1999, so we're going to frame the 1990s here. And this is a documentary. Winters, who follows renowned guitarist Ry Cooder as they travel to Cuba and assemble a group of the country's finest musicians to record an album. Do I have the album? Yes, I do. Do I have the one that's worth a couple $1,000 or so? No, I don't. But it's coming out again, being reissued, I think, by Analog Productions. I'll have to check. Great music. Here is this. I know exactly where the record is, and it would be easier to see, but that's okay. It's a double disc. This is the film, and it shows some great, well, it's got great music, and it also shows some great scenes, not to mention antique cars, 1950s, ilk Chevrolets and whatever and all the paint colors that are floating around. And I still think of it as a Cuba today, but I don't know that that's true. But magnificent music. And again, I love Ry Cooder. Really enjoy his records, which I've got, I think, every one he's ever done, with the exception of Meeting at the River with Ravi Shankar, I believe, or somebody, forgive me if I'm wrong on that. But in any case, it's been repressed, and I'm going to be looking for it too. Won one Academy Award for the best documentary, and just some great music in there, and highly recommended. Great way to spend some time relaxing and enjoying music. And
now, the Meet Me the River song, is that similar to our moving fish that we have on the plaque?
On the what?
The moving fish we have on the plaque. You push the button and it's...
No, but you can bring that over if you can find it anyway. He did another film which I actually had never heard of, but we'll have to look for. It's called Salt of the Earth, 2014 documentary about the life and work of photographer Sebastião Salgado. Do you know him?
Yes, I'm familiar.
Because as you know, the director of this film, Kathleen Kaplan, is a famous photographer, but not as famous as I'd like her to be. Then I wouldn't have to work at all. But, we're going to have to show your book. In fact, if you have one handy, I'll show it this show. He spent 40 years in over 120 countries documenting societies in hidden corners of the world. If you've ever seen me, you will understand that I've only recently been able to fit into corners. Until a year ago, weighing almost 300 pounds, I didn't fit in too many corners. But now at 152 and can't gain an ounce no matter how much I try, I can fit in corners. So I'm going to have to find some. Maybe I'll send in a picture of me in a corner. So anyway, Wim Wenders, I highly recommend looking at some of his work. So remember, you are listening to the Educated Retirement Radio here on your home planet, KMET 1490 AM, also once known as the Mighty Met, and I still vitalize it to that degree. And whose picture? Did I miss somebody's picture down there?
No.
Okay, just wondered. Anyway, do not forget drheckham.com, www.drhecm.com, theeducatedretirementradio.com, or www.theeducatedretirement.com. It all works. And don't forget to call me. We can talk about reverse mortgages. We can talk about your specific situation. We can talk about UFOs. We can talk about Bigfoot. And it goes on from there. So we do have some honorable mentions for this date in history. Birthdays. Neville Brand was born August 13, 1920, left us in 1992. Now, I know this guy. His face is so familiar, but I never knew his name. There's what he looks like, in case you are watching or will watch. And yeah, you do recognize him. And every time we're in Hollywood or Hollywoodland, near Hollywood and Highland, which I catch the bus on that corner quite a bit after getting out of the subway. And there's a pretty nice, gathering place in the Hollywood and Highland Shopping Center. Right across the street on that corner is where he got shot dead in the film DOA. Love this film, and it puts Banning on the map. So, Sean, do you know this film that put Banning and Beaumont on the map?
Nope, never seen it.
It's considered a film noir classic. It was redone again in English this was English language, but it was done in color, and it was done. I didn't like it. I didn't care for it that much. This I do care for, even though DOA stands for Dead on Arrival, and a lot of it is in San Francisco. It goes from Banning to San Francisco to Los Angeles, and it's, in spite of the fact that the protagonist is DOA, it's a great film and considered as such. So Neville, and you look at that face as the bad guy. There he is, I think, from probably a scene in The Untouchables or whatever, the television show. He always played a bad guy, and as such, I'm sure he got a lot of work and made decent money as a bad guy. And of course, he can't be that bad with a cigar in his face like he did there. But he starred in 65, I don't know what you would call him starred, but he was in 65 films such as DOA, Kansas City Confidential, Stalag 17, Birdman of Alcatraz, as well as television's The Untouchables, Bonanza, Ben Casey. Oh, we don't have the record of Ben Casey Sings. But so be it. Actually, we saw some other Ben Casey, whatever his name is. We saw more records by him. Rawhide, just to mention a few. And of course, then there is Bert Lahr, August 13th, 1895, and he earned his wings in 1895 to 1967, so died early, at least by today's standards. And this small picture, but I think you can see it, but you probably all know Bert Lahr. We have a picture of him younger. There he is as a young lad. See that? A young lad, there he is. And, American actor, comedian, vaudevillian, best known for his role as the Cowardly Lion in Wizard of Oz. And there he is. And there's some, stories about that. I believe his wife was dying of cancer in the hospital while he was doing this. Pretty brave fella. There's more to the story, but I don't want to get into that here and now. But very entertaining guy for Cowardly. And of course, there is Wizard of Oz, and Wizard of Oz was early Technicolor, just like the Sherwood Forest guy. Robin Hood. I mean, these early Technicolors are so vivid. I've heard people lately talk about music the same way, like it's early Technicolor, very vivid, right out in front. I love those. There's nothing natural about early Technicolor color. But man, it is great. Really wonderful. George Shearing came into our world. on this date, 1919, and left us in 2011. Now, I must have 35, 40. I mean, he's just easygoing jazz. He could be, he might not be, he might be, a genius. But what he did on the records were, just nice background, foreground, whatever. That it reminds me, I just got this 6-record set of bring me that big set, would you, of what's his name was playing, who is just kind of the same kind of music, a total genius. I'm not saying the same type of music really, but let me take a look around here. Yeah, I know. Can you come this way? No, you'll. She'd be seen on the camera, and she won't do that. NASA Nellie. She doubles as NASA Nellie when NASA can't get through the Van Allen belt. I know. Oscar Peterson. Look at the size of this. 6 LP set. Gatefold Artworks. This guy is one of the best technicians around, okay? 6 records in there. But except for what I played earlier today, I mean, one of those 6 records is not lounge music. But, if you lower the volume to some degree, it's like lounge music. But if you really listen to it, the guy's a genius. Maybe a little different than Keith Jarrett, Bill Evans. But, when you think of Oscar Peterson, it's more loungy. But if you really listen to it, he's a genius. Same may very well be for George Shearing. I'm going to have to give more of a listen. So he is a British jazz pianist and composer of over 300 titles, such as Lullaby of Birdland, Summertime, and got to be a different Summertime than the Gershwin one, and I'll Remember April. Now we're getting into Annie Oakley, who was born August 13th, 1860, and left us in 1926. I know we're getting into lots of birthdays this time, but why not? There's a picture of Annie. Huh? And here's another one. There you go. Toting her gun and pistols. And I guess she was quite a shot. Now I'm going to show you one that's another set of 78s. Check that out. And this set was given to me by, as it's falling apart right now, remind me to pick up that piece when the show is over. This was given to me by Martin Andelman. And let me get that right now before I forget, because
It's neat.
there you go. Well, it may be really neat, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
It'll fall apart. Martin Andelman has a blog which I highly recommend. And he is a real genius when it comes to presenting the value of a reverse mortgage. He's been on my show a few times. He's actually was a very close personal friend. I say was because he's moved out of state and, whatever. But I wish he were back around a little bit more, being more active with me. But he is active, and he's got a, actually it alliterates, so it's called Mandelman Matters. So mandelmanmatters.com, you'll find he's a great writer. Very prolific and very, very, very good. So give that a look if you like. And anyway, Annie was an American sharpshooter who starred in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. And audiences were astounded to see her shooting out a cigar from her husband's mouth. First of all, I would never allow anybody to shoot a cigar out of my mouth with live ammunition. It's a waste of a good cigar. And, I've been to I remember when I've been to some places where I went to the restroom to do a number one at a cigar store, and there'd be a sign saying, "Please do not drop the cigars in the toilet because it makes them wet and hard to light again." So, all cigars. Her story has been adapted for stage, musicals, films, including Annie, Get Your Gun. And remind you, get your information on reverse mortgage here at KMET or www.theeducatedretirement.com. And you know the phone number. I won't repeat it right now, but I think it's time for NASA Nellie. And it is also, now, you know, we don't necessarily need to take a break, so we won't, will we? There, I hear her retro rockets coming. Those retro rockets, by the way, were supplied by one of my clients I've done 2 loans for. He is also in his 90s, and yes, just as sharp as Grandpa. And these are wonderful things when people are like that. And, you know, you can do that with today's medicine. And I think, you know, staying busy is another very important part of that. And we'll get into more of that. So take your time with this, NASA, because we've got some time to fill. And pictures? Yeah, it's talking slow motion. And let me get out of the way so you can... This can pick you up.
The Mariana UFO Incident. It happened on August 15th, 1950 in Great Falls, Montana. This might be the most famous home movie ever shot with footage of a sighting of unidentified flying objects, the very first of its kind. It was 11:25 a.m. Nick Mariana, the general manager of the Great Falls Electrics, a minor league baseball team, was inspecting the Legion Stadium baseball field before a game. The Electrics was a farm club of the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Wow.
A bright flash above caught his eye. They were 2 bright silvery objects like shiny metal, rotating, spinning like a top, while flying at a speed he estimated to be about 400 miles an hour. He said that they were about 50 feet wide and about 150 feet apart. He didn't see any wings or exhaust, no sound except for a whooshing sound when they first caught his attention. The objects moved almost counter to the wind direction. They were not balloons. He ran to his car to retrieve his 16mm movie camera and filmed in color the UFOs for 16 seconds. He filmed the objects until they disappeared into the sky. The day after the sighting, the Great Falls Tribune described the event and the film in an article, and it was picked up by other media outlets around the nation. After seeing the film, a reporter called Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio and informed them of the sighting and home movie. Nick was then interviewed at Malmstrom Air Force Base. In addition to his story, he told them that he had seen 2 jet fighters pass over the stadium shortly after the sighting. In January of the following year, Bob Considine, a writer and UFO skeptic, wrote an article, The Disgraceful Flying Saucer Hoax, which tried to debunk the most famous UFO sightings to that date, including Nick's film. Considine said Mariana was a liar, prankster, half-wit, crank, publicity hound, and fanatic.
That reminds me of what people call me. You sure that's not about... Oh, no. Go ahead.
Nick then filed a lawsuit for slander, and the suit was eventually dropped a few years later. Captain Ruppelt of Project Blue Book convinced Mariana to let the Air Force see the film again for more details. He agreed, but only after requiring the Air Force to sign an agreement that they would not remove any frames. The analysts at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base concluded that the objects in Mariana's film were not birds, balloons, or meteors, and were not reflections of jets, which was a previous conclusion. Ruppelt said, "We studied each individual light, and they appeared too steady to be reflections. We drew a blank on the Montana movie. It was an unknown." Copies of Mariana's film currently resides in the U.S. National Archives. It has and still is featured in documentaries, television programs, and feature films. One of the earlier examples was the 1956 semi-documentary called Unidentified Flying Objects, the true story of flying saucers. It was about the development of the UFO phenomenon in the United States. Several members of the cast were the original military personnel, airline pilots, and reporters playing themselves, including Nick Mariana. Mariana's home movie still continues to be debated. Hundreds of UFO sightings have occurred in Great Falls, Montana since that day in August 15, 1950.
Yeah, I do remember that. Ruppelt was, of course, part of the well, we didn't have an Air Force back then, I think. But yeah, he was very much a believer in, and wrote books to that effect, that he was a believer. And then later in life, he said he never believed in those things. So I think that the military got to him. After all, the military was his life, and back then you did what the government told you to do. These days, not so much. I guess it has to do with trust in the government. But that's a whole nother show, isn't it? And it's a show we're not going to have here when we talk about this good stuff. And so also, we got some other great things on this day, but let's wait to hear the not retro. Oh, there she goes, blasting back to the International Space Station. How long does it take you to get to the space station?
A few minutes, couple of minutes.
Just a couple minutes?
Yeah.
Well, then she has a rocket that Elon Musk or NASA didn't build if it's that fast, but that's okay if you can do it. So, on this day also, that sounds more like a rocket in the background. War of the Worlds, magnificent movie, best of its kind. I think this is the best version, and I know we've talked about this before. There is a we don't have the I wanted to show the Criterion DVD, but it's right there because it's in the machine actually right now. But in any case, Criterion has a great version of it, and I think I mentioned this once before. When it first came out, it looked pretty good on tape, and then we started getting better quality DVDs, and those DVDs showed, you could see the wires and everything in it, which kind of took away, it was kind of cool, but took away the effect. And now that we've got such really good ones, here's the Criterion copy that I was talking about. Anything in here? Oh yeah, here's these guys that are about to be vaporized. This is a great version because you can't see the wires, but it's got lots of extras showing the wires and how they did this and how they did that. Great scene. I mean, this is not the normal suspect of Tokyo being destroyed by Godzilla. It's Los Angeles being destroyed by aliens. And there's a great scene showing the tower. Used to be the tower. I remember when the wall was the tallest building anywhere around, because we had like a 13-story limit in Los Angeles due to the earthquakes. In fact, I am so old. I actually, with my father, went to the Coliseum to watch the Dodgers play, but that's another story. Anyway, that scene showing the top of the City Hall being destroyed was turned into black and white and was stuck into the Harryhausen film of Earth versus the Flying Saucer. So you can if you watch it, you can hardly tell the difference, but it's there. So this is another version, Spielberg's version, which I thought was pretty good. I especially like the first part of it, where the idea that these machines from Mars. We're coming out of the Earth. And, but, Tom Cruise isn't always my favorite actor, although he does do some great work in some films that we have mentioned. It was his birthday a week or two ago, and we mentioned some of those. Spielberg, of course, a great director, but this is called Tom Cruise's finest performance, maybe. But he was good in it, and of course, special effects were, of course, were brand new, so they were great. And at the very end, the parents were played by the original two in the original one, which was Gene Barry and Ann Robinson, correct? Yeah, because we have a poster in our lavatory. Remember that word, lavatory? Boy, I ain't heard that in a while. Anyway, we have a poster showing that as a double bill with When Worlds Collide. And of course, George Pal, we talked about him. When Worlds Collide, of course, they save about 50 people and send them on to a new planet. Every one of them is blonde, blue-eyed. They even saved a dog, but no mixed nationalities or other nationalities at all, which was, I guess, normal for that period. But boy, does it sure stand out now, and hopefully wouldn't be the same right now. Anyway, that War of the Worlds was released on August 13th, 1953. Directed by Byron Haskin, produced by George Pal, based on the novel H.G. Wells. I find Wells pretty tough to read for some reason. I don't know. Not that it just doesn't flow in a way that I want it to flow, but I have read, but there's some great stories there and ideas. But that starred again, Gene Barry and Robinson, nominated for 3 Oscars and 1 for Best Effects. First time I saw that, I believe it was at the Studio Theater in Studio City back in, 400 years ago. Now, here is a lousy movie that is absolutely wonderful. And, we're going to show this too, aren't we? Just before we got the Orson Welles War of the Worlds. There's some neat pictures there. And I've listened to it several times. I'm sure most people have. War of the Worlds and fake radio war. You hear about so many people that killed themselves. I don't think anybody killed themselves over this, but it's kind of a publicity thing. But some good pictures there. And what's on the inside? Yeah, well, of course, the original story was in England. The city was London eventually, and the countryside. And of course, New Jersey was which it looked like New Jersey in the Spielberg film also, but who knows. In any case, this was New Jersey. Anyway, but The Brain That Wouldn't Die, amazing. It's so bad that it's great. And that was released August 10th. 1962. It's a little off, but it's so important, such an important landmark in film that we've got to mention it. Also known as The Head That Wouldn't Die. And of course, no, let me show that picture first. See that? I was going to try to something up where I could put my head through a tray. Now, there's another movie that shows a head, I think, in a tray, and that's another super duper Lovecraft adaptation, which was that Lovecraft adaptation of, my God, I got to take one of the brain supplements they advertise, I think, on TV. I'm not sure what. But yeah, you bought me that as a present or whatever. In any case, I will remember it. We got to look up Lovecraft movies, would you please? Because it's driving me crazy that I can't remember. It was done by that same director that we met at that Lovecraft festival, and you bought me that great record, which I'd love to show, but we will on a future Stewart was the guy's name, I think. We met him at that Lovecraft Festival in San Pedro at that great
Yeah, from
Necronomicon was that was the book.
Color Out of Space.
Not Color Out of Space, but
the Reanimator.
Reanimator, that was it. Anyway, look at that. Is that great or what? That's a landmark still in cinema. Look at that. That is amazing. So, and as a brain that couldn't die, film focuses upon a mad doctor who develops a means to keep human body parts alive. Sound familiar? After his fiancée was in a car accident, the doctor kept her severed head alive for days, and he searches for a replacement body. Now, his searching for a replacement body makes this absolutely the perfect meaning of exploitation film. It shows, I mean, it goes to these like a strip club. It follows him while he goes into the what do you call it? The dressing rooms of the quote performers. And so it shows there's a lot of female body parts shown, but not too much. But, you know, still, it is an exploitation film of the highest degree. And, you know, you need to see this. This is a masterpiece of silliness. And it was also done, of course, on Mystery Science Theater 3000, which I think is a favorite of so many people. And I think I've seen every Mystery Science Theater that existed. And it's come back on Shout Television, which was also picked up by Netflix. And it's all there. And they have a newer version of Mystery Science Theater 3000 also. But highly recommended if you haven't already. And then, of course, there's a contrived ending with a monster in a closet or something that has nothing to do with the film, that comes out and kills people, and that's how they end the movie. But so be it. Which reminds me a little bit. Now, there was another movie that we were talking. What was that the other night that we? But just Donovan's brain. Now, there's no. This is, you know. Also, Kurt Siedmak by Kurt Siedmak. He wrote this. The brain has some ideas of its own. Unrated, but this is really good. It has televisions, or not televisions, the original Dr. Kildare from the movie time, which would be, how come it doesn't have his name? Oh, Lou Ayres, of course. Yeah. Lou Ayres, Gene Evans, Nancy Davis, and Steve Brody. Nancy Davis being, of course, Ronald Reagan's wife, as she says, as she talks about, no connection, but she talks about monkey brains and making a great stew. So those are really great parts. I highly recommend it. And it has nothing to do with what we were talking about, except that, you know, kind of high. So we got a few more minutes here. And as you may recall, or you may not, we talked about, and as you notice, I'm spending 2 hours without even mentioning reverse mortgages, which I just mentioned there. And sometimes that's the way I like it. And, you know, I like doing things like this, getting into what some of my hobbies are. Obviously, film is one of them. Music is a big one with me. Electric trains and astronomy. What else? What am I missing? Astronomy, electric trains, food. Well, it used to be food anyway. And music, of course, I got 8,000 or 9,000 LPs right now. And, you know, there was a time there last couple of months I didn't have my amplifier, couldn't listen to any, and we were buying records every week without being able to play them. Now that I can play them, and I do while I work, you know, and Usually, when you've got a turntable and you're listening to analog, you want to sit in front and pay attention to it. But I will have it in the background. And don't tell anybody this, okay? I'm a big analog fan, but a lot of digital doesn't sound bad either. But don't tell anybody I said that, okay? And we talked about lighthouses, and we had a bunch of pictures, and I don't know where they are, but we don't need them. But we do have a few more minutes, so at least I'll talk about them. And this had to do with what day it was, and it was the Lighthouse Act was signed a week ago in 1789, and there are over, but I love warehouses, lighthouses also. I remember we in Northern California, we went up. I should do that. We had just gotten an early Super 8 or whatever, or little whatever camera, and this is when I was large, and I turned down at the bottom and went up, I don't know, 300 steps or whatever, and boy, you could hear me. Normally I would breathe pretty heavily anyway when I weighed that much. And boy, you should have heard me huffing and puffing and we should play that just for the fun of it again. Maybe we'll play it on the air. It was pretty funny. And it's a good video, a good documentary of why not to get too heavy. But there are over 700 lighthouses in the United States, and if you're able to visit any of them on this day, which, was that day in history a week ago, you can watch some movies that highlight lighthouses, such as The Light at the End of the World, The Fog. Oh yeah, I know. I saw that trip down there in the hallway. That's the original. They did a remake. Wasn't that bad either. But The Fog. Oh, speaking of which, it might be on the top there. That record, what's his name? Carpenter's record. If you can grab that. But if you can't, don't worry about it. Record Store Day, the first one this year. One of the record store records was the original music written by Carpenter and somebody else for Village of the Damned, which is one of the remakes he had done. And it is really, really, really good. And if our director comes up with it, I'll show it. But if not, I just highly recommend it. Shutter Island, The Monster of Piedras Blancas, Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which they used some things from, the beast that ate the lighthouse, or fell in love with the lighthouse because it had it looked like another long-necked animal. And of course, Invasion of the Triffids, which has almost nothing to do with the original book, although there was a BBC production that did, and it was very good. But I do like Day of the Triffids. It's called Day of the Triffids, not Invasion of the Triffids. No. And actually it is, but don't worry about it. Maybe I stuck it back. Oh well, it came from beneath the sea. Why not show that? And I think I mentioned I used that picture when I sent it to Ron Siegel to show on his next show, but I doubt if he'll do it. I always send him silly pictures and that kind of thing. But you know what, Kathleen? I bet I put it back in that in the first box. You don't have to. The Lighthouse was a 2019 film, which is absolutely excellent. Not easy to watch way through. It's black and white. And it starred an amazing Robert Pattinson of fame, Harry Potter fame, who I thought big deal. And then he those films about the vampire versus the werewolf that was so popular. But my God, he is so good. I read about him, and he just doesn't want to take any role. He takes roles that are somewhat challenging. And then that's okay. And William Defoe, who is, as we all know, absolutely excellent. And this, to me, was an exceptional film. And it's about two lighthouse keepers try to maintain their sanity, which ain't easy, while living on this remote island in the 1890s. What makes it even more convincing is the glorious photography and in black and white. And the director, who's has done some horror of late, getting quite a name for himself. But I'm going to highly recommend that you find and watch The Lighthouse from 2019 with Robert Pattinson and William Defoe. Just really good. There's also which I've seen, I think, several. There's
Robert Eggers.
Robert Eggers, that's the director, yeah. I'm not sure what else he had done, but I did know at one time. Didn't he do Witch? Really good. Anyway, The Vanishing starred Gerald Butler, about three lighthouse keepers that find a hidden trunk of gold, which leads to their mysterious disappearance.
Witch, yeah.
What's that?
The Witch.
Witch or Vitch or whatever, yeah. Really, really good stuff. So, these you brought out for... Why are you break? I'm asking our director why I'm being...
Oh, just another record you got.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, if we're going to show some records I got, on the chair, you know, the theater chairs we got from the San Luis Obispo Theater, bring those two Sam records out here. The one with the, you know, Art Blakey, because just amazing stuff. Doctor Who, The Tomb of the Cybermen. Just going to show you a couple of good ones here. And, you know, we love old radio stories. This is old television story. But we listened to the first... There's 4 parts to this episode, and we're delegating 1 part per day so we don't get overloaded with it. But love Doctor Who. It's a brand new series that started, I think, in 1964. In any case, this is one story that is The Tomb of the Cybermen. Also, I was given, because we talked about Hitchcock and Bernard Herrmann a bit before, I've got several of these. Yeah, there's another one there too, but that's okay. This is French, and everything in it is French. And just to show you, so I mean, there's so much going on with it. Is a Decca Classiques, which I think is French for classics. And while I was showing you some records, and I can show you a whole bunch, and I probably will next week, because that's how I spend a lot of my time. This is one of the, I mean, if I were to show you a record that said, this is jazz, this is the meaning of jazz, it would probably be, this would definitely be one right here. And how about on the table there, on the red, you know, passing ships would be, and anything else that looks, this is Art Blakey, before or different than the Jazz Messengers. And most of the stuff, there's Blue Moon written by Rodgers and Hart, but other than that, it's all Freddie Hubbard. And I like Freddie Hubbard. I always did. Went to see him a couple of times at the Concerts by the Sea. And I liked him. I guess I was introduced to Freddie Hubbard on CTI records, but I had no idea he could do what he does on this record. So Freddie Hubbard, Nathan Davis, who is another somebody that I just kind of got introduced to, just great, Nathan Davis. But Sam Records it comes from a small company in France, and they do just magnificent work on a lot of things that were never, and a lot of live concerts, things that were never ever released before. They sound great too. Also, just want to show you, and I don't know if we can see this on camera, they try to reproduce the way the album covers were in those days. You see the flap over the back? I don't know if you can see that on the camera here, but, well, so be it. But, yeah, I see a little bit there. Anyway, you know, it's where they take the cardboard and fold it over. I wanted to show you one more from someone who, this was done in the 70s and it wasn't released. Part of it was released on DVD, on CD, never on record before. This is Andrew Hill, Passing Ships. Another record that I would put on my list of, hey, you want to hear what jazz actually sounds like? Listen to this record. And it's Woody Shaw, who is just amazing, Dizzy Reese, Julian Priester, you know, Howard Johnson before he had the Hotels on tuba and bass clarinet, Joe Farrell. And this is just Lenny Wright on drums, Ron Carter, the old stalwart, on bass, and Andrew Hill on piano. And with that, thank you for listening to all of this good stuff. Stay safe. We'll try to get our guest back on a future date. And take care of yourself, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.